Bennington Select Board meeting back into session on Monday, May 13th at 6 o'clock. Back into session. We've gone into session at 5 tonight to go to an executive meeting, executive conference, where we interviewed 5 candidates for boards and commissions, and we'll make some announcements on those later. So that's why we're coming back into session. So I ask everybody to stand, please, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item in the minutes from April 22nd. Any comments? Do I have a motion?
I move they be accepted with one teeny tiny little spelling error. On page 3, about the third paragraph down, it should be the instead of he. 90-day action plan.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion on April 22nd? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Is that everyone? Okay, 6-4, 1 absent. Okay, the minutes from May 2nd.
I move those also be accepted as printed.
That's the one I wasn't at.
Second.
That's the one you weren't at.
That's supposed to be a Thursday rather than Monday, right?
Yeah, that was the Thursday meeting, not Monday meeting. That was Michelle's error.
So the correction on that?
Yep.
What is the correction?
Thursday.
It's Thursday instead of Monday, May 2nd.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I'll abstain, I wasn't there.
Okay, so that's 5-4, 1 abstention, 1 absent. Okay, the next item on the agenda are the warrants. Have you had a chance to look at the warrants? And we'll start with you, John. Any question on the warrants?
No.
Justin?
No.
Jimmy?
No.
Tom?
No questions.
Sharon? Can't let Stuart
No,
off
I
now,
don't.
he's back.
I know, and I had one, but I actually looked up what the number was, so I'm happy with it.
So Stuart, I guess you're off free.
Thank you very much.
Dan trained the board well in your absence. All right, do we have any citizens out there who'd like to speak to the board on an issue that is not on tonight's agenda? Michael? State your name, please.
Evening, Michael Keane, North Bennington. A few meetings ago, Wendy Woods and I made a presentation about progress on the rail, restoration of passenger rail in the area. I think the Select Board committed to writing a letter in support of that. We just wanted to check on the progress of that letter because we have received a couple of letters from other communities.
Okay, Stuart?
It went.
Great.
I don't know that you got a copy, but it certainly went north.
Okay,
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Trace, make sure Michael and Wendy, or Wendy get a copy of that.
I will get a copy too.
All right. Any other citizens out there like to speak on something that's not on the agenda? Okay, the next thing.
Wait a minute, Joanne.
Joanne? Yes?
It's Joanne Ehrenhaus, and with the Chamber of Commerce, and I just wanted to remind everybody that on May 22nd, next Wednesday, at the Old Brush Building, we're going to be unveiling the Catamount Prow sculptures. So it'll be the one chance for everybody to see them all in one place, from 5 to 8 o'clock at 190 North Street.
What day again?
The Old Bennington Brush Company then.
Yeah, and if you pull in by the VA clinic, you come down to near the end of the parking lot, there's a pair of glass doors there. That's where you're going to want to enter.
Okay.
What day
Here
again?
are your personal invitations to come as our guests. You're in sequential order. Tom, you're on the top, even though you're an official sponsor. I didn't want to leave you out.
Thank you. When do they go on the street, Joy?
We're not exactly sure. They'll probably go on the street starting a day or so later, you know, little by little. They may not all be out in time for Mayfest, but they'll be out in time for the season. Okay?
Thanks, Joanne.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the animal control ordinances. Stuart?
Yes, we have 2 ordinances that we're presenting to you tonight. One is the Article 9, Care and Control of Animals Ordinance. This is a rewrite of the existing animal control ordinance, and and Dan is the author. Dan has attempted to do is pull all of the various ordinances related to dogs and other animals and their use of public ways and all of those things into one ordinance. And so this is essentially, the majority of it is what's already on the books, but we have added to it, and I don't know whether Dan needs to make any comments about it. It's fairly self-explanatory. The second ordinance, Article 9.1, is a new ordinance relating to the licensing of private kennels. And here we're talking about folks who have animals that they are breeding for whatever purpose, for sale, for show, for whatever, but they're not a commercial kennel. They don't fall under the zoning laws or the land use regulations, so they're outside of that particular ordinance, and we felt that there was a need to deal with those simply because there isn't currently any ordinance on the book which allows us to regulate how they're operated, the number of animals, locations from property lines, excessive noise, all of those kinds of things. And this ordinance will give us the opportunity to do that.
Okay, Stuart, we've got both these ordinances, 9 plus 9.1 are both dated May and are draft. For those who may not know, explain the procedure how ordinances are approved.
Well, normally what the board does is this is the first meeting where they have been announced at a public meeting. The board would normally take comments from the audience, any changes that they might view into the ordinance that we haven't addressed effectively, and then at a following select board meeting, given the community a chance to respond to the ordinances presented, the board would take an action to either adopt or not one or the other or both ordinances, and then there would be a 60-day period where the ordinance must be posted, and anyone in the community has a right to bring an action to the board asking that the action of the board be altered should the board adopt the ordinance and someone is unhappy with that adoption.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. The way I want to handle this tonight is we'll take Article 9 first, and I'll ask the board to make comments, and then I'll ask anybody in the audience who'd like to come forward, make comments on number 9 to come forward. Clearly state your name and your address, and then we'll hear your question, and we'll move from there. Okay, John, any issues on 9?
No issues with Article 9. Just looking at, actually, interestingly enough, in the last week I've had complaints about animal waste on our public fields and property, and kids complaining about trying to play a game and stepping in it. And so one thing just to add to this, I guess, is make sure there are signs up in those areas just so it's well known, and possibly places to grab little baggies or something just to make it easier for the owners to take care of their own pets. That just might be something we can do for them.
Okay, Justin?
Stuart, Article 9-13, the disposition of unclaimed pets. How often do we have dogs that come in through animal control that go unclaimed? What's the procedure for dealing with them?
Normally, if a dog is unclaimed for more than 5 days, the town is allowed to have it humanely euthanized. We have been working with the Bennington County Kennel Club, I believe it is, and I don't believe that we've paid to euthanize an animal unless one was very sick and could not be otherwise restored to good health in more than 5 years. The Kennel Club will generally take the animal, attempt to adopt it out. For that, they ensure that the animal is spayed or neutered and that has its appropriate shots. So rarely do we find ourselves in a position to euthanize any animal at this point.
So we are making every effort to get the animal into rescue shelter
Yes,
of
we
some
are.
sort before that.
Yep.
It comes to that. And 5 days for an unclaimed animal. Does that mean that we know who the owner is by chance at that time? It just seems like a short amount of time
Well,
where
if-
somebody didn't know their dog was.
If the animal is licensed or we know who the owner is, otherwise, they are contacted by the animal control officers and advised that their animal has been impounded. In many cases, if it's a stray, we really don't know who the owner might be or if there is in fact an owner. And in general, if the dog is in good health, we hold it for 5 days, the Kennel Club then takes over.
Okay.
Anything else, sir?
Not at this point.
Jim?
Nope.
Just 9/2.04, excessive noise. This one looks like there is no time sequence or requirement, Stu. And jumping over, and I know we're just talking about 9 right now, but Article 9.1 of the other ordinance talks about excessive barking, which talks about a time frame. I'm just thinking, as I'm looking at it right now, that so that there's no issue about which is which, excessive noise or excessive barking, if the one that you have under Article 9-204 might be the good one for both of them, rather than putting a time, maybe Dan would have a comment on that.
The only reason that we use the time is that sometimes it's very helpful to have a specific time, just because then the officer or the complainant can time it, and there's no question that the ordinance is violated. I left the more general one in just as a as a backup, but it's really up to you folks. If you think we should have a time in both or a time in either, we can make that change easily.
I would just I think that for enforcement purposes, it would be good to have something that's either very specific in both or not in both, because these have a way of sort of overlapping, and I'm concerned about that.
I think your point's well taken, Tom. I would agree that I think we ought to make Article 9 more specific, because I think that gives clear direction to the animal control officers, to those neighbors who might be offended, and to any police officer who might be responding.
That's my comment.
Okay, good. Sharon?
That was going to be my comment, too. I think they should both mirror the excessive barking with the time frame.
Okay, so board agree, we'll make that change? Okay, mine is 9-2-05. Animal control officers mean any Bennington police officer or any other individual designated by the town manager or chief of police to enforce provisions. It's been recently we put the animal control officer under the police chief. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I guess when I read that, I was a little confused. Understand the Bennington police officer can respond to a complaint.
And that's truly the point, Joe, is that this allows not only our part-time animal control officers, and we have 2, it also allows a police officer to respond to a complaint if those other 2 individuals are not available.
Okay. Is that clear with everybody? Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear. All right, so we've got one thing from the board. Let me ask any citizens out there want to talk, and again, Article 9 is care and control of animal ordinances. This is a generic one. It's not the kennel one. Is there any citizen out there like to come here and speak to that ordinance? Kevin? Please come to the mic, Kevin. And just state your names, Kevin, for the
Okay, my name is Kevin Bisacchio. I live in Automakers, Bennington, Vermont. I just had a point of clarification. My comments that I'm making tonight are sort of generic. Should I speak at the end of the second one? They may cross over.
Why don't you wait if you will do it all at once, Kevin? Yeah,
miss the opportunity, but why don't I do that at the end, because somebody might have something more specific about that.
If you don't mind, Kevin, we'll do it that way.
That's perfectly fine, thank you.
Anybody else on Article 9?
I have one more comment, actually. So again, looking at the barking and excessive noise, I don't think we should really slap a $35 first offense fine on there. I think you have to have a warning first. I mean, if you have a dog and he's left behind, you might not know, and the owner might be able to take responsibility. So maybe with something like that, that's a little more, I don't know, it's not just watching your dog go to the bathroom and then leaving it behind. It's something that might happen without you knowing.
I think I would therefore look to the animal control officer or the police officer who is responding to use discretion.
Okay.
Officers have that opportunity to do so, and I think normally we would
as long as that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else want to talk about Article 9 before we get into Article 9.1? Yes, sir. Come up to the mic, please. Please state your name and your address.
Good evening, Derek Jensen, 1820 East Road. My concern is, in Article 9, it describes excessive barking. problem that I have with this is that in one case it states the time frame is 7 minutes. And then in another one, the town law actually states that the barking is 15 minutes. So there's a contradiction here of time on how long is considered excessive barking. And I really think that we should be clear here, because the law that's on the books now states 15 minutes is excessive. And from what I'm looking at, that's looking to be cut almost in half.
That's correct.
That's drastic. The other thing is, I think that we should all take into consideration, why is the animal barking? I mean, you know, some people don't like dogs, some people don't like cats. You know, is there a cause for the dog to be barking? Does that warrant a reason to supersede the bark ordinance? I.e., like, if there's a neighbor who doesn't like the dogs, who's encouraging the dogs to bark for more than the bark law, to go ahead and have that person issued a ticket because they simply don't like the animals. There's things like that that I think should definitely be taken into consideration, because I've witnessed it. Again, you know, another one is, why is the dog barking? Like, in my situation, my property owner lives on the same property I do, and we've been doing a lot of land work, cutting down trees, things of that nature. When the chainsaw's running, and it's running next to the animals, my animals bark. And it took us about a half hour to clear out a section of dead trees that were going to possibly fall on the house that needed to come down to make the neighborhood a better place. That took us a little bit more than 15 minutes. And so my dogs were barking for a little bit longer than 15 minutes. I had a neighbor call, state that the dogs were barking. An officer had come up, witnessed the dogs barking. We had explained to the officer, and he clearly saw that we were running a chainsaw. He saw all the trees on the ground. He saw what we were doing, and still issued me a ticket. I mean, I think there needs to be some real clarification, not just cut and dry for dogs barking for 7 minutes or 15 minutes, whichever time frame so chooses to be adapted. There needs to be some real clarification on when is it a violation. I do agree. Dealing with barking dogs as a neighbor, it can be a nuisance. You know, if a dog's barking all the time, that can be a problem. As a dog owner, I agree with that. I definitely think there should be a time frame. But I also think there should be some real clear understanding on what that violation is. You know, because there's things that come into play on why dogs bark. If a dog is a nuisance and a dog just simply makes too much noise, that's a problem. If a dog's being irritated, aggravated, or provoked to bark, I don't think it's fair to blame the animal for that, nor the owner of that animal.
I'll go back to Stuart's comment on this, and my feeling I'll ask the board. I think the same thing. I'm going to rely on the discretion of the officer, either an animal control officer or the police officer, to look at circumstances. The example you gave, a police officer did come to your location, did listen to your neighbor's complaint, and also listen to your explanation, and apparently the officer at the time determined that it was excessive barking. You know, we could put 15 minutes, we could put 7 minutes, we could put 17 hours. You know, I think we still have to leave it to the discretion of the officer goes out there. And most of these cases, all of these cases are probably more a reaction of a complaint that's been issued about something, and we expect either the animal control officer or a police officer to investigate what circumstance it is. The dog could be barking because the owner had a heart attack, the dog, and the dog loves the owner. You hear that all the time where pets come to the rescue of their owners when they're thing, and I want to know that. I want my police officer to know that, and obviously we're not going to sit there and write a ticket that the neighbor calls that in on something like that. So how's the other board feel about that? I mean, we're talking reducing it, again, if we're changing it from the current ordinance of 15 minutes to, and this, if we pass this ordinance, to 7 minutes. How's the other board members feel about it? Tom?
Yeah, these are all questions of fact. Every time there is a complaint, it's going to be the animal control officer that's going to respond to it, and consideration has to be given to all of the facts, whether or not they're, as you suggest, or something else. So I think the discretion has to fall with the control officer to make a determination whether or not the facts would support a warning or a enforcement of the order by, or the ordinance. So I think we have what we need to deal with the situation going forward. I think the 15 or 14 minutes before was just too much.
Okay. Sharon?
Yeah, I think that's a long time to listen to a dog bark. I mean, you're saying it's not fair to the dog, but I'm saying it's probably not fair to the neighbors to have to listen to it either. So I don't have a problem reducing it. I know I've had a dog in my area that barks incessantly too, and it just, you know, it's just something that you shouldn't have to deal with.
John?
I agree completely. The only suggestion I would make is to get to know your neighbor. Let them know when you're doing these jobs, whether it be taking trees down or whatever it might be. And when you get to know your neighbor, you're friends with your neighbors, they're not going to want to call you in. They might just come over and let you know, listen, I'm having a problem. It might eliminate that problem for that instance. The other thing is just take that into consideration. If your dog is barking, maybe try and put him somewhere in the house where the noise is going to spread a little less. It's my only suggestion, but I think we should stay on track with this.
Justin?
I don't have any comments at this point.
Jim?
I'd support cutting it in half because you might notice criminal activity sooner.
Look, that brings up a good point now to look at this. I'm going through it again. Is there an appeal process?
No, generally this is a civil enforcement action, so if the person wishes to contest a ticket, they have an opportunity to go to civil court.
So that's how it's contested
and
then?
contested there.
All right.
I'd also like to note that that ticket that I was issued for running the chainsaw, I did contest that ticket and actually won in court because my property owner had come in with me and explained what was going on. The officer did admit that, yes, he saw chainsaw running trees down, chips on the ground, and the judge said, well, I can't fault that. So I was actually dismissed of that ticket.
So the system works?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that you ended up having to waste your time, but I mean, that's
I had to take time off of work. I had to do all these things, and like I said, so, I think that's why there should be a little bit more attention by the board to actually attention to detail on discretion, because
We can't legislate discretion. No. That's why we have an animal control officer to use the appropriate discretion and either warn or cite. You then have your prerogative after that. I think anything more for this board to get involved, we would be involved in the day-to-day operation of the enforcement, and we're not going to.
It's not our job.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens out there who want to talk to Article 9? Kevin, we'll get you up in a minute. Come on up. For those of us who don't know you, state your name.
Hi. You know my name. My name Bob Mayer, 1808 East Road. I lived in Bennington for 58 years, and most of you, I probably all know me. And my biggest problem was not only, well, mainly with the dogs, but it's the dog owners also, Derek. You tell him one thing and he'll say, yeah, we'll do this, then he doesn't do it. I have my property right next to him, within 20 feet from these dogs. I had 13 dogs hooked to my fence on my yard, on my land.
Wait a minute. Say that again, Bob.
Huh?
Say that again.
Well, he had these dogs on my line. I got a fence between.
Are these dogs chained to your fence?
His dogs were chained to my fence, and the dog houses went on it. So anyways, I got talking to the landlord, which is the Colettes. They agreed they would move the dogs on the other side, on their side of the land, which started off good, but it's come to a dead stop. I do have some real good pictures of holes. The dogs ate a hole right through my fence. So in other words, if I was working in the garden, the dogs would be coming out. He took care of that at the moment. And then right now, I got a bunch of pictures I'll show you.
Just give them to Tom here, we'll pass it around, Bob.
And then
Okay.
this is the latest debris I'm looking at.
Okay. Start from Tom.
And here's a copy of my complaints since it started off. But the other biggest thing, I got at least two great-grandkids. They won't go out there and play no more in the yard. Why would you send anybody out there with 13 pit bulls out there? And the other thing is, of course, this was my last place I was supposed to live till I die. Now I got to move because of all these well, I shouldn't call them dumb dogs because I don't have nothing against dogs. I like dogs. But just common sense tells you, who in the heck would ever want to buy my house if I had to sell it? Nobody. And in their right mind would want to come out there and buy your house with all these dogs in the backyard. So the biggest problem is there. It's between the dogs and the dog owner.
Hey, Bob. I think you're getting kind of into our next ordinance too, so you're talking some of the stuff we're going to discuss in the next ordinance too, so.
I was going to suggest, Joe, that when discussing an ordinance in general, that these kinds of individual complaints might not be appropriate. I don't mean to cut Bob off. I think he's met with me in my office as well as he's met with Dan Monks, and I understand his concerns, but I think it takes us away from the discussion of the ordinance in general if we start to look at specifics.
Right. But anyway, I like the ordinance, the way you had it. It sounds very good to me.
I guess that would be the only question I would have, Joe, is that whether or not the individuals that have pets that are here tonight, whether or not the drafts of these ordinances respond to their needs and concerns. I've heard one neighbor saying there's some question about the time of barking, but the other neighbors, I would be interested to hear whether or not they think these drafts do serve that purpose, without going into specifics about neighbor disputes.
No, just that's true, but...
You're comfortable with these ordinances that are proposed?
Yes, I did see a copy, and I like that.
Great, thanks a lot.
Very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, we've talked about 9.
Excuse me, can I?
Go ahead, Mike. You going to talk about it?
Yeah.
Dog owner. Have you seen the ordinance, Mike?
Excuse me?
Have you seen the ordinance?
No, but I'm just going by what you're saying. The first gentleman to get up, I agree with him, and the second gentleman, I agree too.
Mike, excuse me. We all know you. For the people who may not know you in this town.
Mike Bethel, Bennington. They both have valid points. I think as a lifetime dog owner, there are conditions that make your dog bark, and it may be 7 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, whatever. And I think if you're going to give the officer discretion, that's a good thing to do. But I think you got to let the public know that too, so that they're not getting the officer out there thinking, okay, the dog's barking, now the officer's going to, boom, do this. If the officer sees a reason why the dog is barking, then he's going to be able to say to the neighbor that's complaining, hey, look, a dog has a certain rights too, and so does the owner. You're creating the disturbance for the dog. But the other guy, what he was talking about, the other gentleman, you know, that's like Stu said, that's a one-on-one thing where if somebody's breaking the law already, I thought there was a kennel law that you couldn't have, and I may be wrong, more than 3 dogs on your property. Am I right on that, Stu? Or?
No, you're wrong. Actually.
I'm wrong. How many dogs can a person have on their property?
Actually, we have people who have licensed 14 dogs on their property.
Licensed?
Licensed.
Right, that's what I mean. You have to have a certain license to be able to have.
Yeah, once the dog reaches a specific age, it has to be licensed. You have to show that you have the proper shots.
No, I mean, how many dogs can a person have on their property at one time? Oh, you don't even have that in this.
We don't have a cap.
You don't have a cap?
No.
Should you maybe consider a cap?
Well, the ordinance here, the private kennel ordinance does contain a cap.
How many is that?
I think it's 4 or 5 or more.
4 or 5?
5 or more, I believe.
Okay.
And
It's actually 5 with shoe intact.
let's hold off on 9-1 until we get to the license.
Well, I'm just saying that I think the officer, if he has the discretion and the public knows that, that's going to help the officer too. Whatever
I agree.
Whatever rules you come up with, make it clear that the officer does have the discretion.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's stay on number 9. I think everybody has seen that. Any other public comment on 9? Okay, the board's had the opportunity. Let's go to 9-1, Stuart.
Yes, this ordinance is really drafted to deal with an issue that has come to light recently, where we have people who are grooming, breeding, raising dogs for either commercial purposes, whether they be full-time commercial kennel, or whether it be for private sale, or for whatever reason. And they kind of slip through the cracks. They're not really a commercial kennel per se. They're not governed by the town land use regulations. So we're attempting to develop an ordinance here that will deal with those specific issues. And the gentleman in the audience is right. It's 5 or more dogs, 2 who are intact, which means they are capable of breeding, so that it becomes, in a sense, an in-home private business attempting to raise dogs for either training purpose, competition purposes, or simply for sale. And we're attempting to set limitations on what those numbers are, what's the magic number that brings this ordinance to bear, what is an appropriate distance from residences, what is an appropriate way to handle the waste and other issues that are generated by a great number of animals in one space, generally confined. And so that's what this ordinance is attempting to do. It attempts to deal with that private issue that has become more and more an issue for municipal governments to deal with, as dog lovers have now become dog breeders. They're selling the dogs either internet or otherwise. It's become, in a sense, more than a home occupation, and we're creating issues for neighbors who are adjoining if there isn't sufficient space and sufficient care given to the care and keeping of those animals.
A couple of keys I see in it. One, it is a separate license going to be required if they meet the requirements that are in this ordinance. There's also an insurance required, a $500,000 insurance.
Yes.
Okay. I also see the stand setback, I'm going to call them setback distances from property lines.
1,000 feet.
And what are some of the board members' other key things that you picked out on this?
I don't know, Stu, it's a total of 5 dogs, and 2 can be
Intact.
Sharon, what page are you seeing that on?
the very first page where it says private kennel.
Private kennel.
Okay, thank you.
So it's a total of 5 dogs, 2 of which can be intact.
5 or more.
Well,
Well, I think we should
what,
put a number on that.
Well, why? It's 5 is the
Or
minimum,
more.
or more. Why would you want to cap it?
No, you want to cap it. You have a minimum.
well, what's the maximum number?
There's no.
That's not important. What brings the ordinance to bear is if you have 5 dogs, 2 or more intact. If you have 6 dogs, 7 dogs, 8 dogs, if 2 or more intact, it brings the ordinance to bear. And you have to deal with the limitations that the ordinance provides.
You may need to go to a license if you're starting to talk about an extreme number of animals and the amount of property you have.
Well,
And that's where the licensing would come into play.
Right.
So you might have to have set figures. So once you hit 10, then there might be a new license, a little more expensive. You have to prove that you have the property to maintain a livable life for these animals.
Well, and that's why we picked 5. I mean, when you look at our animal control licensing list, we have a number, and I'm serious about this, we have a number of homeowners who own more than 10 dogs. They're all licensed, they're all spayed and neutered, they're not being raised for breeding, they're just dog lovers who have those animals. They live in neighborhoods fairly congested, but they control the animals behave, and there are no complaints. So we're not attempting to address that kind of an issue. Here we're talking about people who are raising these animals for a specific purpose, either to be sold, or to be trained for sale, or to be bred for sale.
So a private kennel definition basically is the same as a commercial kennel designation, but on a somewhat of a smaller scale, am I?
Essentially. Okay. A commercial kennel generally also provides for impounding of dogs or the holding of animals during terms when the owners are away. Private kennels generally don't get into that kind of a business. That would make them a commercial kennel, and they would then be governed by the land use regulations.
Right. So we're looking at a place where some sort of monetary gain is coming from the ownership of.
It's assumed that that's one of the reasons that this is.
And I want to clarify that there's no requirement that there be a monetary gain, because that's really been the crux of the problem in trying to deal with folks who have what they call private kennels, where they're just saying, well, it's just for my own enjoyment, and there's no proof of any monetary gain. So this does get to those folks who just have a lot of dogs, and if they got a couple that are intact, it's pretty likely they're breeding them, but they may or may not be selling them, or maybe may or may not be easy for us to find out that they're selling them. So it's a bright line test. Got 5 or more, 2 or more which are intact, you're going to fall under this license.
But like Stuart said, if there was a pet owner who had 6 dogs at a residential neighborhood, and I mean they just own 6 dogs, are they?
Not unless they're not unless 2 of them are intact, 2 or more of them are intact. We have lots of folks who have lots of dogs, but they're all spayed, neutered, and they keep them under control.
Okay, so the part of that point is to also encourage spaying and neutering of your dogs, in a way. Okay.
Did Jim, you had something?
I'm just trying to read between the lines here about the idea of a private kennel and never mind.
I'm on board with this. I think the spirit it's trying to get to, but it's a little, the commercial versus private kennel thing is just a little murky in my mind, and I'm having a tough time completely wrapping my brain around it. Although I think the essence of what everybody's trying to accomplish here, I agree with. I'm just I am having a little bit of a tough time differentiating between the two.
Well, how about if you look at page 6 and look at the requirements and standards? It kind of spells it out.
What a private kennel is. It's very clear. Any place other than a commercial kennel, which is defined above, where at any time 5 or more dogs over 6 months of age are kept, or any 2 or more of such dogs kept are intact. It doesn't include veterinary clinics. So you're either going to be a private kennel and be regulated under this ordinance, or you're going to be a commercial kennel and regulated under the land use regulations. It's going to be one or the other. There's no more cracks to fall through. That's really what this is fills in the crack where folks are saying, well, I'm not really a commercial kennel. I'm not really selling dogs, or if I sell a dog, it's once every year or 2. So this is really a bright line test. You know, an animal control officer can go and count. You got 5 dogs? Okay, great. 2 of them intact? Okay, you need to get a license. You need to comply with his requirement.
Okay. Here's the question. Maybe you answered it earlier. If let's say somebody's got 10 dogs and they're all spayed and neutered, this ordinance would not apply. Okay. All right. That's.
Anybody else? Tom?
I was impressed by the 1,000-foot because I think that deals with the residential aspect of what we're trying to deal with. You know, if you're on a 10-acre plus farm, you don't really have this issue, but we're concerned about the neighborhoods, both village and town. I think that's really a good response to it, and as well as the insurance issue, because we have been fortunate in this town not to have claims like these you see in the media. And I would hate to think that we'd have to use this insurance, but this may be some evidence or some effort on our part to recognize that there is a culpability on the part of the owner, and that owner is going to have to meet it before they get their license.
Okay. Any other board member?
Just one other thing that I'm a little bit concerned about, because it seems like it could be a way around some of when we talk about the spaying and neutering of the dogs. I see the requirements and standards. Number 2, training dogs for fighting is expressly prohibited. We've had 10 dogs that were all fixed. You would have, this ordinance wouldn't be able to address that if you were concerned that they were, dogs were being used for fighting. or something of that nature, but they were spayed or neutered, how would
That's
this
true, but
ordinance?
if you know about dogs that fight, they're typically not
Okay.
spayed or neutered.
That crossed my mind, but I don't know.
I agree with you on that, though, because when I see this, I see it as a humane issue and making sure that the animals have a good lifestyle and that we're fitting into a large enough space and being fed and treated right. And I think once you hit a certain number, whether you are spayed or neutered or not, we might want to address that. But for the purpose of this, I think that could be added just to improve it.
Right.
I've got one other.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to get to a point where it's, telling somebody they can't own 6 dogs and they're taking care of them and they're spayed and neutered. There's no commercial aspect to it whatsoever. But I also think we do need to address what we're trying to address here. So it's a fine line to try and find the, the perfect mix of it, so.
Under requirements and standards, number 6, I spoke with Stu briefly about this, and especially with large numbers of dogs, it says here all dogs should be afforded proper veterinarian care. You often hear about the dog collectors, and the dogs are not well cared for, and I wondered if it may be appropriate to present paperwork or evidence that the dogs are being seen.
Well, that's part of the licensing requirement. They have to be licensed. They have to show the veterinary clinic certificate that they've had their rabies shots. I board my guy out once in a while, and you have to have a bordello shot before the kennel can take him in with other dogs. There's proof there just with the licensing procedure.
And to further address Jim's concern, what I suggested to him is that the wording is appropriately broad, because we, the municipal government, can't really tell somebody what is appropriate veterinary care. However, in situations where animal owners, be they licensed dogs or otherwise, or licensed pets or otherwise, if those animals are not cared for properly, there are already opportunities on the books where the police and the Humane Society can move against these folks and either bring those animals into good health or impound the animals and take them away if they're not being properly cared for. So that already exists.
As part of that, is that the discretion piece also when animal control goes out there, they can kind of make that?
And generally, that's a call for the Humane Society, Second Chance Animal Shelter, whoever is working with us to make that determination.
Okay, mine goes to number 4 under the requirement. I'll read it. For all dogs not housed indoors, all weather kennels or shelters or dog runs or enclosed exercise areas shall be provided and shall be adequately sized for the particular breed. Dan, did you run this by the legislature? Because I believe they passed a law telling what the minimum requirements for a doghouse has to be for the different things a couple years ago.
I didn't see anything. I did run it by council, and he felt comfortable with it, but I did not look.
Well, you just might want to check, because I recall a big debate on how large the kennel had to be, or the doghouse had to be. It had to be covered and everything else for the different pets out there. And I know they did this for cattle not too many years ago on the small ones too. They did the size of the calf pens that they could put them in. And actually, I think they're outlawed in the state of Vermont now, if I remember right. I mean, just follow up on that, Danny, and check, make sure, because I seem to recall something coming out of Montpelier on that.
One more point, if I may. It's okay, Joe?
Yeah.
There are quite a few hunters around Bennington and who have, multiple beagles and other hound dogs. Would this apply to them as well?
It would. It would if 2 or more of their dogs are intact and they have 5 or more.
Okay.
My dog's intact, guys. I've only got one.
Sorry, this is going to be a repeat question, but if they have 2 dogs intact and that's it, they don't have to do anything? So they could still be breeding, because after 6 months is when you have to actually claim the dogs, right? So they could be breeders with only 2 dogs.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And they wouldn't have to file for any licensing.
That's correct. They're not a kennel. They don't have sufficient numbers to meet the minimum requirements of this ordinance.
Okay. Kevin, you want to come up now? I think we're talking to this. Again, Kevin, please address the ordinance.
So I'm still Kevin Bisacchio, and I'm still from Automakers, at least so far. when I read the ordinances, the key words that I see, that I hear, that ring out: health, safety, and welfare of the public and the dogs. And there's a number of people from our neighborhood who are here for support. They may have a handout, they may speak, they may not. But why am I here? I'm here because over the past year, I have discovered 2 dogs chained to my property. They were Mr. Jensen's dog, which he admitted to me. It took me 2 months to have them removed, and it had to be via a notice of no trespass, okay, on August 5th. So I spent a good part of the summer, much less time than other people here in the neighborhood had to spend worrying about this. Dogs, cages, things along that side. Also other byproducts that dogs leave behind, which I'm still working on. I've had several conversations with Mr. Jensen and several confrontations. And I only mention that because...
Let me interrupt you just a minute, Kevin. Again, please understand your neighbor, understand you got an issue. Can you look at this ordinance and tell me the issues that you've had with your neighbor? Would this ordinance address those issues and give the town the authority to make sure the health, safety of personnel and animals are taken care of?
It does. It doesn't go as far as I would like, but I like the listing of the issues that are addressed. For example, the noise, a vicious dog, I can't recall how that's defined, I have it left over there. The insurance, I'm really concerned about that.
Good or bad?
I'm glad it's in there, okay? Because I know of, well, I worry. Let's just say I stay up nights worrying whether people who own these dogs or owners of the property have the appropriate insurance to protect me, to protect them, to protect the town, okay? And I have to tell you that I have my doubts. I don't remember the section it's on, maybe it's 4, where there's a listing of what's addressed, and I don't remember which ordinance. But that is pretty comprehensive, and I do like that, and I do believe proximity to a home. This is a residential area. I think that is really well done and well thought out. 1,000 feet, I believe, would work. So I'm obviously very much in support of it.
What do you see that's not included in this that you felt would be important to you as a homeowner?
Okay, what would concern me, I'm glad you brought that up, that's the next page here, is A, it affects licensees but not landowners, okay? So, if you are at a property and you rent, I think the landowner is not motivated to assist in the issues that arise. And carry it one step further, if you can fine till the cows come home or till the dogs go away, but you have an unsecured claim unless you go after the landlord, as you do in other levies and whatnot. So I really wish you would consider that. I also think you're going to need to closely monitor the inventory turnover, okay? The first 5 dogs, A, B, C, D, and E, when they come in for a license the following year, make sure that they're not W, X, Y, and Z, okay? I think that's an important part of this. So it's been a very bad year in the neighborhood. There's a number of people who feel intimidated and would not come to the meeting tonight. So I'm speaking as much for my neighborhood as for me. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to address those.
Just to refresh my memory here, Kevin, the ordinance you think would solve the kind of problems that you and your neighbors experienced. You like most of the things, but you'd like to see the owner held, of the property held, not just the licensee.
Exactly.
And the other thing you'd like to see added would be that the town, on an annual basis, when it licenses the animals, to see if there's a high turnover of young dogs or whatever, to be able to
make sure we're
prove or disprove they're not there for the purposes we say you can't.
Because we're saying I think we're saying with this that they're domestic pets, so they,
right.
You know, and if a dog turns over, I mean, I'm a dog lover. I have dogs. I've always had dogs. I've grown up with dogs. If a dog passes on, or I, trade one in for a lesser model or something like that, I'm going to have to go get a new license. Everybody else should as well.
Right.
So, and I guess the only other thing is be aware that the injunctive relief powers, I was glad to see that in there, but that may have to be used at times. I don't know if fines always have the same clout. They look good. In my industry, they look good, but in the end, you may have to use the police powers or the injunctive powers. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right.
Anybody else want to speak to this issue? Sir, state your name, please.
name is Brian Allard. I live on Automakers Road here in Bennington. I believe that these ordinances would address the issues that we have been concerned with.
Step a little closer to the mic, please.
I believe that these ordinances would address the issues that we have been concerned with for several reasons. I recognize that the ordinances are fully in line with similar ordinances adopted for similar purposes in numerous communities throughout the state of Vermont. I believe they're measured in tone and they're written to help ensure the humane treatment of animals and the public welfare and safety of the residents of the town of Bennington. They contain nothing either unreasonable or out of the ordinary. I recognize that these ordinances do not in any way intrude upon the rights of responsible pet owners to raise, keep, or to nurture the pets. On the contrary, they will help ensure the humane treatment of companion animals and help prevent them from being chained and neglected out of doors 24 hours of every day in all seasons and in all forms of weather. I believe that no individual should allow his pets, personal activities, or hobbies to interfere in a disruptive manner with the lives of his neighbors or to prevent his neighbors from their rights to the quiet enjoyment of their own properties. It is wrong that one of my neighbors can no longer allow his grandchild to play in his own yard because of fear of another's pets who have already damaged his property. Finally, I ask the Select Board to consider the issue of liability, and you have. In the event that someone, such as this grandchild, is bitten or otherwise hurt by someone else's pet running at large, particularly one who has been trained in what the owner refers to as bite work. Please consider what the impact on the town might be if such a tragedy were to occur here in Bennington and if the town had no framework to deal with this situation. For the health, safety, and welfare of all who live and work in this beautiful town and who have chosen to make it our home. For the humane treatment of the companion animals we keep, and because it is the responsible thing to do, I urge the Select Board to adopt the proposed animal control ordinance and the proposed kennel ordinance. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Allard, for coming forward. Any other citizens out there that want to speak? Yes, sir. Mr. Jensen. And again, please speak to the ordinance.
Hello. We don't want to see your nose.
I've brought up some things with me just to use as examples, okay? As you can see, there's an abundance of ribbons here. Blue represents first, red represents second, white represents third. This is actually a best in show, and this is a best in show trophy. And I'd like to pass these so you can actually all see them. This says here, junior handler, which means any child under the age of 5.
You know, wait, let's, Mr. Jensen.
This is important.
I don't see where that applies to the ordinances we have written here. I mean, some of us show horses, some of us show dogs, some of us show cats, some of us show something else. And
I'm going to get to that. I'd like you to please give me a chance. Again, junior handler stands for anyone under the age of 5. Again, Derek Jensen, 1820 East Road. I've been at this address 2 years, okay? I've had these dogs the whole time. The commercial kennel, I don't see an issue with. The private kennel, I have a very big issue with because it's very gray. It states 5 or more dogs with 2 intact. Now, I'm not a kennel, okay? Do I have over 5 dogs? Yes. Are more than 2 of my dogs intact? Yes. But I don't breed, I don't train, I don't sell pups, I don't sell grown dogs, I don't do any of those things that they're trying to monitor or limit in a private kennel. Okay, these are family pets that our family, myself, my wife, my 2 sons who are under the age of 5, love, care for, play with, active with every single day of our life. We incorporate these dogs into our life on a daily basis. Okay? It's a family affair here. These are simply pets. Now, because it's a little gray in the outline of what a private kennel is, I would then be forced to adhere to being a private kennel when I'm not. These are pets. These are simply pets. I don't breed, I don't raise, I don't sell, I don't do any of those things. There's no monetary gain, there's no nothing.
So why don't you neuter?
I don't feel the need to neuter. I mean, I don't see why. That would be like telling someone, well, you have 3 or more kids. Why don't you go get yourself clipped so you can't produce no more kids? I don't think that's the town's job to step in and say, and force somebody to say, look, your dog needs to be neutered. As long as my dogs aren't getting loose, running over to neighbors' dogs, impregnating their dogs, creating what they would call feral dogs, I mean, then there would be grounds to be concerned on why dogs should be neutered. That this is not a problem in Bennington, and it's definitely not a problem that my dogs pose. My dogs have never gotten loose. My dogs have never attacked nobody. My dogs have never, caused anybody some issue. Yes, they did a little bit of damage to this gentleman's fence. We've offered to fix the fence. We've offered to make the situation right. We've moved the dogs to the other end of the property. He said he was in fear of his kids, grandchildren, coming over to play. There's really no need to fear. I have a son who is 2 years old. I have another son who is 4 years old who are out there every day with these dogs. These are family dogs that are raised in a family environment. Do they carry the word pit bull? Yeah, they're pit bulls. Do they have a negative stigma? Yes, they do. Okay, the media and everything portrays these dogs as vicious monsters that will maul and kill you if they get the opportunity. I happen to be a very responsible pit bull owner. I make sure my dogs get the right amount of training, the right amount of socialization, so that they are not nuisances to the community.
Let me get you back to the ordinance. How do you feel about the fee in the ordinance?
Can you read it to me?
This ordinance is required for a private kennel, which you say you have.
No, I don't have.
You have a problem with the $50? What kind of kennel do you have?
I don't have a kennel, period. They're pets. That's my gripe here. Okay? This is something to try to force me. This is like, saying, well, Derek, you have more than 5 dogs and more than 2 of your dogs are intact, so you're a private kennel. No, I'm not. I don't see why I should be forced into doing these things when this is not what I am. Because right now, Vermont state, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Vermont state law supersedes town law. Am I correct on that?
Oh, well, maybe we don't have our lawyer here tonight to talk about that kind of thing.
But anyway, there is no number to the, no set magic number, as Stuart said, to the amount of pets one can own. Okay? And what's going on here, and I'm going to restate your quote in the Bennington Banner. This ordinance here directly, Stuart had said it in an interview with Mr. Whitcomb in the Banner, that he is looking to craft an ordinance limiting me to the type of involvement that I'm involved with my animals. Did you or did you not say that in the Banner, Mr. Hurd?
I said that, no. We're attempting to craft an ordinance that will deal with problems, some of the problems that you have had with your neighbors that have been created, that may be created elsewhere. The ordinance is generic. It's not meant to focus on you, but if in fact the board adopts the ordinance and the definition of a private kennel is as proposed here, then you would be a private kennel. Whether they're your pets, whether you're breeding.
How can you force me into that? I mean, that's like saying to someone who is of mixed race, who is mulatto, half black and half white, because they have nappy hair and colored skin, that they have to say that they're black.
No.
Yes, that's exactly what you're doing.
But we're not talking about human beings here.
I don't care to breed.
Time out. Let me bring this back to order. We're discussing this thing here. The board is charged in its legislative duty to pass ordinances for the best of the community, and this is what the board is considering right now. You can have your opinion on what the private kennel is, or whether it's your number of pets that you have, or family member dogs, or whatever you want to do. This is not the debate for the viciousness of pit bulls versus my German short-hair pointer, okay? That's not the point of this ordinance. This point of the ordinance, as Dan Monk stated, is we found that between our land use ordinance and our other ordinance, -9, there is a gap there that's causing a problem to people in the town of Bennington. And it's our intent to look at this ordinance to see if it takes and fills that gap. And that is our job right here, right now, to look at it.
How is, I guess my question is, in respect to what you're saying, how is a dog being intact a problem? I mean, you're creating, you're putting specific things in there which are directly targeting someone like myself, because now if all my dogs were neutered, I wouldn't, as you said earlier, I wouldn't fall into this ordinance. But because there are a few of my dogs that are neutered, but there are a few that aren't. And for the simple reason is, we couldn't attend these shows if our dog was neutered. There wouldn't be points awarded to the animal if the animal was neutered.
These are breeder shows you're showing your dogs in?
No, actually, if you read it, it's a fun show. It's the Massachusetts American Pit Bull Terrier Club, kind of like the Beagle Club that just went in, okay? We host fun shows.
Do they follow standards of breeder show?
They follow, generally, yes. But, I mean, like I said, I don't breed my dogs. I don't sell my dogs. I don't...
Potential to do that with dogs intact.
I'm sorry?
You have the potential to do that with dogs that are intact.
I guess you're right. The potential for me to do that is there, but I do not do it. And there hasn't been an issue with me doing that.
Unfortunately, I think what we're dealing with is an exception. I mean, from listening to you tonight, I think that you are a great owner. You care for your dogs genuinely, and you give them a good space to live in. And unfortunately, some people like you are going to get rolled up into this, but we have to ask. It's not, but unfortunately, sometimes we have to weigh the good and the bad. And I'm asking you to imagine a case where someone that has as many animals as you would fall into this and have negative outcomes from that. And yes, there are good owners, yes, there's bad owners, but we have to draw the line somewhere. So unfortunately, you get wrapped up in that mix, and what we're asking is that you pay a $50 fee and that we make sure that your animals do fall into these categories in which you're saying they do.
And also, you're asking in there that I carry a $500,000 liability insurance.
That's right.
Okay. Do you know how hard that's going to be for me with pit bulls to attain? No one's going to insure me.
Why not?
Because insurance companies will not insure you if you have those dogs.
We got this. I think we've really heard the discussion here. I think we've really
Again, it's discrimination.
Yeah. Mr. Jensen, we've heard your argument. We understand you don't like this, and
well, it's impossible for me to adhere to.
Well, then the consequences are outlined. If this is passed, then the consequences of you not meeting the requirements are spelled out in this ordinance.
I would love to meet them. However, there is no insurance company in the world that's going to give me a $500,000 insurance policy on my pit bulls. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to give it to me. Okay, so even if I wanted to adhere to or tried to adhere to your ordinance, I can't. An insurance company is not going to insure my dogs.
Well, if the insurance company is not willing to take the risk, the town is not either. So the long and short of it is, I think we've heard from this gentleman about his concerns about the ordinance. Now, what's the next process for this?
The next process is find out if there are any other. Mr. Jensen, we think we've heard your argument, okay?
I mean, how does one determine what pet ownership is? I mean, it's very vague, because the Vermont law states that I can have these animals and that there is nothing to be determined on whether or not the animals are intact. I mean, you're looking to, if this ordinance is intact, we have two separate rules we can go by. We can say, Mr. Jensen, you're a private kennel because you have 5 or more dogs and they're intact. And I can say, no, I'm not a private kennel. Yes, my dogs are intact, but state law states that I can go ahead and have, and Bennington law states that I can have as many pets as I want, and that's what these are. These are pets.
Mr. Jensen, we've heard your argument. Thank you very much. Any other people out there who would like to talk to 9-1, please?
Can I say?
Mike, again, state your name, Michael.
Mike Bethel. I think you guys are getting yourself into a... I know you're a lawyer and you won't give your opinion on this one, but I think you ought to seek legal advice before you adopt some of this. The gentleman did bring up a very valid point.
We have sought legal advice, Mike.
And you can make an insurance policy of that magnitude.
The insurance policy is for the owner to carry for property and liability.
So that would be on their homeowner's insurance?
That's correct.
That's right.
It's not
So it's not a
necessarily
separate-
specifically related to
A
the
dog.
fact that I own pit bulls.
So he could take out, even though he rents his property, he could take out a homeowner's insurance policy.
Renter's policy.
So this inaction that you're doing is not discriminating against people with dogs. He doesn't have to go to his insurance saying, I have.
But it is saying that if you are operating a private kennel under this ordinance, you must carry at a minimum $500,000. Many homeowners carry more than that.
Of liability insurance. For
Liability
anything
and property.
that covers any, it's not
But
specific to.
just using that individual with his dogs, is he into a kennel situation then?
If this ordinance is adopted, he is, yes.
He is. So then he has to come up with insurance, or he has to fix his 2 dogs, or he has to get rid of one of them or something like that?
Or the owner of the property, right? Or has it got to be the licensee?
In this particular case, it refers to the licensee, and I'm going to talk with Dan a little bit about the issue that Mr. Bisacchio raised about owner responsibility.
Yeah.
We'll try to address that in the end.
That's what I'm saying. I think you're coming into a sticky gray area there with property owners and dog owners.
Just to clarify, our attorney has reviewed these very closely and is fully comfortable with us adopting them
Okay.
as is.
All right, next item on the agenda is the Morgan Spring Emergency Generator Purchase, and I'm going to be recusing myself from this. Before we get to that, Mike, you want to come back up to Mike?
Can I just ask you, what do we need to do with this?
Which what?
This ordinance, anything at this point?
Right now, I think we've got corrections. Stuart's going to come back with the changes he's made.
Yeah, and the other, normally what we do is we vet the ordinance at one meeting,
Okay.
and then we'll come back after the public has had time to respond and adopt them at a second meeting. Or a
Can I just
meeting
make one
to
further
Sure.
point before we? You know, and I agree with this, with basically in spirit with what we're trying to do here. You know, not to read them all out. I think the requirements and standards for the most part are all things we can all agree with and we all want to see move forward. The one piece that I think there's still some catches and some loopholes and some ways around things that don't necessarily make a lot of sense, just because of the nature of what we're trying to do. But the commercial versus private kennel definition piece here, I'm just wondering if there's a way we can clean this up and get to and accomplish the spirit of what we're trying to do without necessarily defining what these two pieces are, because I think this commercial and private kennel thing is really making this really much more gray than it needs to be. I think, you know, and I don't have it hammered out in my head right this second of how that would look, but I think we could, you know, possibly look at some of these requirements and standards, noise ordinance and leash laws, and accomplish what we're trying to do here without trying to differentiate between whether or not somebody is a pet owner or a breeder.
I think I take the opposite perspective, that our present leash law has no real teeth in it, and that absent real specifics, we're going to be stuck within the gray area. And frankly, I think we've got specifics here rather than a gray area. So it's going to be easier for me, the pet owner, to know if I fall under this. If I do, then there's basically a recipe. You just follow it through.
Okay, listen, why don't you sit down with your, maybe time to think about it, come up with it, we'll bring it up at the next meeting. We don't have to pass this right away, we'd like to take, if you got something substantial, fine,
Okay.
and we'll go from there.
I should note that a kennel, and Dan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a commercial kennel is defined in the land use regulations.
It is, it's 4 or more for commercial purposes, whether
Yeah.
it's breeding or
Boarding.
or grooming.
Yeah.
And the problem becomes when you have folks that say, oh, I'm not a commercial kennel, I'm not doing that, and it's very difficult to prove that. And so this is a bright line test for an animal control officer. They can go and say, doesn't matter if you're selling them or breeding them or grooming them, here's the rules.
Okay.
So, we'll take a look at the definition issue.
Mike, you came in late when I did citizens. I heard you might want to address the people of Bennington on some other issue during the citizens. Is that correct, or you don't?
Yeah, would you mind?
No, we're going to let you do it now, then I'm going to recuse myself for the next part. Go ahead, Mike.
One, tomorrow night, the school board, the BSD, is going to have a meeting right here to push the vote. And I hope everybody comes to it, asks the questions, and I hope that they vote positive for it. I truly feel that if we don't pass the school budget here now, that it's going to be another negative on the front page of the banner for our town and build our economic opportunities for people in this town is going to be hurt. So I hope people come out for that. The other thing I want to mention is June 25th, next month, we're going to have a forum right here with DCIC and PCRC, trying to get the citizens out to talk about where they want to see us go economically with jobs, creation in downtown, Northside Drive, or manufacturing. But Peter Olinati came up with the idea, the phrase actually, idea-generated event. And I would like to see, it'd be 7 o'clock to about 9, 25th of June, citizens, young and old, come out and talk to the different agencies that are going to be here. We have a small business association here, just to talk, get ideas, what funding is available, if anybody has any ideas to start up a business, small or large, or bring ideas, maybe the select board will show up at it to this little forum. So I hope you will show up June 25th, but please vote for the school. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Morgan Spring Emergency Generator purchase, and we have a memo here from Terry. And Stuart, do you want to just review this for us?
Sure. Terry is here to address any specific questions you might have. As many of you know, one of the Kruziks in the community came forth with a 300 kilowatt generator, a used generator that he was willing to sell the town, and it was an issue that we decided we needed to take a serious look at. You recall we were talking about a $42,000 new generator and installation cost, and we have done that. We have tested the generator. It has run well. We've also contacted an individual to see how we might modify the generator, either to put it on a trailer or have it stationary. And Terry's memorandum addresses the issues that have been raised with regard to the older generator. If you include some of the changes that would be required, and the estimates are provided to you here, the generator, in a sense, would be near the cost of the new generator. And Terry's concern is that if in fact we were to move forward with this, we would end up with a generator that is more than what we need, would have to be modified at some expense to be operated, and we're essentially where we were to begin with. We have a used generator that we have modified, we put money into to make it work, and we've spent about the same amount of dollars that we would spend buying a new one. And I think Terry's worked very hard here. Other people have come forward with other ideas, as he's indicated in his memorandum. All of those have been flushed out by Terry and his staff. And I think tonight we're prepared to recommend to you that we proceed to return this generator to its owner, and that we proceed to purchase a new generator and install it. It would be more appropriate for our site, and would provide us with what we need at a cost that is essentially the same as what it would cost to purchase this and outfit it.
Question for you.
So, one second. So how old is the generator that we've been looking at? Do we know? Terry, do we know? Terry, come on up.
Good evening.
Hi.
The question, Terry, is how old is
the generator you've been looking at, the used one?
The new one?
This one.
This one that we've been talking about.
Your memo.
So what we're looking at here is a used generator. It is about twice the size of the one that we initially came to you in at $42,000.
Right, but how old is this one?
We're not sure.
We're not sure, okay.
Somewhere between, it appears maybe between 10 and 15 years old. We don't have the hours on the machine. There's no recording on the generator portion giving us the hours on the machine. I will tell you that machine is in really good shape. We had high hopes for it early on, but then as we started looking at having to place the generator off-site pour the concrete pad, run the additional conduit, because it is a diesel-powered generator, not a gas-powered, that we had originally looked at. I don't know, yeah, I think it did, the 18,246 number is just basically to get it in a housing and put a new silencing exhaust system on it. We would need to, on top of this pour our own pad, run in the electrical by a transfer switch that would allow the generator to come on automatically. That transfer switch in itself is between $7,000 and $10,000 installed.
Okay.
At this point, I'm really saying to the board that due to the costs involved with making the transition from this generator as it sits right now to a usable piece of equipment, I'm not really comfortable coming to you and say, this is what we really want to do. Because it's sitting in our shop, and it has been the last 3 or 3.5 weeks, the current owner has been very good about saying, do what you need, have what you need. But I think we're at a point right now where, because of the cost to make this upgrade and make this piece of equipment usable, I'm really not comfortable coming to you and saying, this is what we want to do. So I'd like to return the generator. It's just sitting on blocks in our water shop right now. Maybe give me a little more time to research other opportunities, other generators. When we came to you with the 42,000, that was a number that we got from one company. Since I have gotten another one from another company, but it was a considerably larger generator, and that quote was for $147,000. So, I mean, this whole thing has taken quite a number of twists and turns along the way that I hadn't anticipated. So I think really what I would like to do is return the generator that now sits in our water department, get a little more information together for you, and perhaps we can talk about this again at budget time. But from what my research has done with used generators is that we're going to be right in the same ballpark as a new one, regardless of how good a shape it is and what kind of, even has low hours on it, simply because of the cost of making that retrofit.
Okay. Jim, you had a question?
I lost. What if any money have we spent on the machine itself? Have we invested any money into it? No. Okay.
No, other than some electrician costs to hook it up, run it in our original testing of the unit.
And the cost of a 300 kilowatt generator, which is not what we required, what is it? What is the number of kilowatts that we require?
Pardon me?
What's the kilowatt?
140 on the 42,000.
No.
No, the one that we're looking at.
What is it the town requires?
Minimum's of 140.
Is 140 kilowatts?
Yeah.
Okay, and the price on that was what?
42,000.
42, okay.
This one was the 300 kilowatt. Right. The one that was 147,000 was the 600 kilowatt.
Okay.
So I thought that was kind of oversized, that one.
Now, the brand new one, that's going to be stationary? You mentioned that the used one fixed up could be stationary, or we could use it elsewhere.
Right.
So that is an added
benefit. It was another 14,000 to make it portable, put it on a trailer that would be DOT. And that was only a thought because here we had this unit, they started talking about the housing and the electrical connections and that kind of thing. So we were saying, well, if we're going to put all that kind of money into it, do we want to have it portable? We have a major outage, it means somebody will have to call out and drive it down. But we aren't looking at something that has to happen immediately. certainly we have to know about it and be ready to move immediately, but it's a little unlike something like the generator we have in our water filtration plant. That needs power 24/7.
But this could potentially, if it was up in Woodford and the bridge went out again, we'd still be stuck because it would be on a
Right.
trailer and we couldn't get
So
it down.
if we had a power failure at the plant and our generator, something happened to that there, we could take this one of that size, of a 300 kilowatt size, and run our plant. One of the things here is that the pumps at Morgan Spring are fairly large. They're 75 horse motors, and along with 2 motors, we have variable frequency drive instrumentation, cooling fan. You know, there's a number of things that happen when that pump cycle is on and when those pumps are running. So we were very excited about the larger generator. We thought we could make it work, but unfortunately, you can see with the numbers that came back, estimates, we're going to be right back in the 42 to 45,000 range.
Okay.
If we do something with it.
Any other board members have any questions for Terry?
Not at this time. I think I'd just save it for the discussion when it comes up.
Okay. Do we
Yeah,
just
I
need
think
consensus?
The purpose here was really to report what we had found with the used generator. We would like to return it to the owner, and Terry's going to continue to do research as he's indicated here. And our next item on the agenda is to set work session dates for the water and sewer budgets, and we'll continue the discussion then.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Terry.
So do I get my batteries back? Terry, you mentioned, I use my batteries to test the generator out of my boat and my camper. My boat's sitting there ready to go. So I guess I can get my boat out now. All right, so the next item on the agenda is set the
Water and sewer budget.
water and sewer date. Now, Terry, you're out of, we were going to plan it on the 1st of June. Terry's not available, is that right?
Ask him.
Not available.
No,
You're not available on 1 June, right?
June 1st, I'm not.
And we talked about doing it the following week? June 8th?
And I'm out of town.
And Sharon's out of town. Okay, how about weeknights? Like we did last year, 2
I'm
weeknights?
available,
So is that the only date you can't do it?
yes.
How about you? And
I'm gone from the 4th to the 11th,
so we do it anytime between the 4th. All right,
So we can do it whenever, the 13th.
Are we going to have an
14th.
an abbreviated meeting next Monday?
yeah,
I mean,
well, right now as it stands, there's nothing hot on the issue.
why don't we look to tackle some of this next Monday night?
It's a great idea.
Can we handle that? You ready for next Monday?
Sure.
It's fine.
Okay, we may have to go 2 nights. Let me ask you this, Monday and Tuesday? Everybody free Monday and Tuesday?
Can we do it at 5,
Monday.
earlier?
Let's try Monday and see where it goes from there.
Monday, yeah.
Okay, let's start with Monday then. And let's do it 5:30.
It's fine.
Is that fine?
That works.
Are you saying next Monday night will be it?
We'll start the select board, and we'll do it, after we adjourn the select board, we'll move right into the water sewer budget. Okay? So we're planning on an abbreviated select board meeting to sign warrants in any emergency that comes up between now and next Monday.
You're looking at Monday and Tuesday, the 20th and 21st?
Oh, my
Just the
God.
20th.
Maybe the 21st if we have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep, okay.
Okay.
At 5:30 p.m.
Very good.
5:30 p.m.
Thank you.
All right. So next item on the agenda, manager's report.
Actually, you've got the Pleasant Street Enhancement Project, Joe.
Did I miss
Mike,
it?
Yeah.
Mike Harrington's here to just, it's simply
Okay.
to make an announcement about the local concerns meeting
All
so
right.
that we inform the public of when that is.
That's right. I missed a thing here. All right, go ahead, Mike.
That's all right. Just here to let you know and let the public know, the Pleasant Street Enhancement Project is in the design phase. As part of the requirements for the design phase, we have to hold a local concerns meeting. So this is just to announce, and it was in the paper today as well, that the local concerns meeting will be on May 28th at 6 p.m. at the Unitarian Fellowship Hall, which is on School Street. Okay.
Everybody got
Any
that?
questions at this point?
Could you give us a brief rundown again of exactly what this project is?
Sure. The project is very similar to what happened on Union Street, looking at sidewalks, curbing, road work, maybe some utility movement, but really that's the purpose of this community meeting as well, is to hear from the public to say, as we're looking at Pleasant Street from School Street up and around to Main Street, are there any things that we need to take into consideration as well? But predominantly, it will be the looking at sidewalks, curbing, roadway.
And this is just the section from school heading east?
Correct. We, a few years ago, we did the west, so from North Street to School Street, and then and our hope is to see if we can take the monies from the grant and use them as efficiently as possible and get all the way up and around the old middle school and to Main Street.
Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, it may include certain pedestrian amenities on that first block of School Street as well. I believe that was part of the original.
Yes, it's possible, yep.
Lighting in that also? Is it?
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mike?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, now I'm back on track here. The next item is going to be the appointments of the 2013 Boards and Commission. Tonight we interviewed 5 people. Individuals for the Development Review Board, Historic Preservation Commission, Housing Authority, and the Planning Commission, and the Board of Listers. Do I have any motions on any of the people we interviewed?
I'd like to nominate Joanne Ehrenhaus for Historic Preservation.
Okay, I have a nomination of Joanne Herrenhausen for the Historic Preservation Commission. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor? And that's 6-4, 1 absent. Any other nominations?
I'll nominate William Devono for the Regional Commission.
Okay, we have a motion to...
I'll second that.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Again, 6-4, 1 absent. And do we have any other nominations?
I think I will nominate for the Housing Authority appointment Capri Petzer for that term.
I'll second that.
Can you spell that name for us, please?
It's C-A-P-R-I P-E-T-Z-E-R.
P-E-L-Z-E-R.
Really?
Yeah.
P-E-L-Z-R.
P-E-L-Z-E-R.
We didn't get that. Can you?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Capri Pelzer, P-E-L-Z-E-R.
There it is.
Oh, thank you. That will help.
Okay, any discussions on Capri? Not all in favor? And that's 6-4 and 1 absent. Okay, just on boards commissions, we still are interviewing for the Development Review Board. We still have positions open there, 2 positions. We're still interviewing for the Board of Listers. We're still interviewing for the Planning Commission.
Town service
And the
officer.
Town Service Officer. So anybody out there who is looking, who have not put an application request for, or still wants to do it, please get it in quickly. Okay, next thing on the agenda is to set the work date for the Bennington Strategic Economic Development Plan. Mike, I saw your memo. Why don't you talk about that?
As we talked last time, the conversation was around the final adoption of the plan, as well as discussing the partnership in terms of the rollout of the plan. So we thought it'd be most appropriate to set a work session to have that conversation that needs to occur. So the recommendation... What's that?
You have a recommended date?
I do not, so I am open, but I don't know if, Dan, if you've discussed any date.
I think it's really up to the select board. We'll make,
Okay.
we can accommodate their schedule.
And you think this work session, what are you thinking, a morning, an afternoon, an evening? How
I think we
long?
could very easily do similar to the earlier work session in the evening, unless Dan has other thoughts, but I think an evening at 5:30
No, it's
may be
really just,
possible.
we would see it as a 2-item agenda, review and hopefully adopt economic development plan, and then review and hopefully implement a process for moving forward. So it's really 2 items. We would hope to bring the steering committee in, the select board in, and have everyone kind of talk around the table and figure out the best way to move forward.
And the task force as well.
And I've also seen a memo from you, Dan, talking about dates, the select board meeting with the school officials.
Yes.
Now, my concern right now, folks, we got a lot of dates here, and we got
I
a
know.
holiday weekend coming in here. We
And
got
I can't be
important
there the
items.
date that he was talking about for the
For the
school
school?
thing. Yeah.
Well, I think this economic development plan, it's important that we get this one on the agenda. I'm getting to the point where it's like, and analysts analyze this thing over and over. It becomes sort of like a paralysis. I'd like to get this off and running. So could we, like an alternate Monday from the board meeting?
Okay, I got a calendar in front of us here.
That works very well with my schedule and the board.
All right. So we're talking about, well, the following Monday's the 27th, that's the holiday.
That's the holiday.
Following Monday.
Could it be June 3rd? That would be an alternate Monday for you folks.
June 3rd?
I'd say we push to have that even sooner, even if it's not on a Monday. And we're talking about a 90-day plan here that we're trying to get going, and we're pushing it off 14 to 21 days.
This is an off meeting day.
That's June.
Justin, what's your schedule for the nights?
Mondays and Thursdays work well for me.
Okay. How about the Thursday before the holiday?
You're talking the 23rd?
Well, how about the 29th or 30th of May? That's a Wednesday or a Thursday. That's after the
Thursday.
That's after the Memorial Day holiday.
Thursday, Joe?
Thursday, everybody? So it's Thursday, the 30th.
What time would you folks like?
Morning?
Guys, I don't work.
5 o'clock. 5 o'clock.
After 5 is easy. 5:30 is easy for me.
All right, let's do it 5:30. Here?
We'll try to do it here. I'm not sure if it's.
Let's set it up the way we did with Dr. Mullins. Let's do it here at 5:30, all right?
If this room's not available, we'll find an
And
alternate.
it is open to the public,
Yes, absolutely.
okay?
Thank you.
All right, so,
Joe, can I touch on one thing
Sure.
regarding this, before we go a little further? We say 5 o'clock for that, also, or 5:30?
5:30.
5:30.
I told you, I mentioned to you earlier that John McFadden and myself had a chance to meet with Michael.
Right.
And Bill Colvin also last week. And we talked a little bit about the recruitment piece. It was on our 90-day action plan. Very good meeting. We had some great ideas. Mike and Bill both came with some very good information. And I think we were able to actually really get the ball rolling a little bit on what that may look like. We had some good momentum. And what I'm hoping to do with the board's permission is to actually ask to pull that out of the 90-day action piece and actually ask to see if we can get that back here a little bit sooner, maybe within 30 days or something of today, because I just don't want to lose the thunder.
I think that's a good recommendation. I think that's something we can iron out when we meet on that day, Thursday. We can meet that, because we got to approve the plan before we can actually put it in there.
Right, exactly.
And
So
I think,
I'm saying maybe we could get it from 30 days from today or something of that nature, and just pull it out of the 90-day. Because we did have some really good momentum, and I'd like to keep going forward. Would that work with your?
Yeah, we may not have a final product, but we could certainly come back with a draft and discuss it and move forward from there.
That'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be really
So this is what we're going to be
That's for the
discussing.
Thursday,
This is
the
for the meeting.
30th.
Okay.
You should have everything you need for that.
Right there.
Right there,
Okay.
okay. All right, good, yeah.
Excellent.
All right, so let's now get into the manager's report.
The only action item we had was to set our next meeting date, and we have
Already done that?
done that. So we'll be meeting at 5:30 on the 20th of May. It'll be warrants, other business, and then we'll begin the discussion on the water and sewer fund budgets.
Great.
Very briefly, as many of you know, has been covered in the papers pretty effectively, FEMA has made some preliminary eligibility determinations to the tune here of a little over $1 million. Am I right, Dan? 1.3?
About 1.55 million.
Okay. We are in the process of discussions with FEMA, regarding some of the costs in the projects that they found eligible, and we are also in the process of developing an appeal on the major project where, although we don't have a formal determination on eligibility of all the issues that are raised in that particular project worksheet, we do intend to appeal. I can tell you that the state is working with us on that appeal, as well as our national congressional delegation from the state of Vermont.
The question I had when I read your memo, Dan, when I saw the actual price we paid for the work we did in the river versus what they reimbursed us, I thought we submitted those prices to begin with, our initial report.
We're all at the state level, the legislative level, and our engineer all a bit baffled by that, and we're hopeful that the memo that you saw today, I don't think the rest of the board's seen that yet, will convince them to use the actual numbers as opposed to just pulling some numbers.
Because we paid almost twice as much as what they reimbursed us. I think we did pay twice.
We paid about twice as much what they said, but we paid about a third as much as what the state of Vermont says it should have cost us. So we feel like we're well within that ballpark.
Okay.
Lots of information to come on that, so.
Now, let me ask another question on the FEMA thing and the appeal. When I was up on Montpelier last week, over in the in building, I think it's 311 or whatever, there was still a FEMA office down there. So does the state still have an active FEMA office working on our appeals?
Until the end of this month.
It's what?
Probably there will be an active FEMA office till the end of this month, and then it's going to be really trying to work through Washington, unfortunately. But.
And who represents us as far as legal in this? Does anybody, the Attorney General?
Attorney General is working with the state. Actually, all of our appeals go to the state, and then the state forwards them to FEMA.
Okay.
So the state Attorney General, there's two states Attorney Generals working with us now, will actually be involved in forwarding all that information to the FEMA folks. Right now, there's three prongs. We're doing an informal regarding the work that's already eligible and trying to get a number that we feel comfortable with. And then there's more of a formal process that we have to wait a little bit on for the work that they've determined is ineligible to get that eligibility determination.
Okay.
So it's many different prongs, at least three different tracks we're on right now.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Any other questions on that FEMA piece? There's a work still in progress, guys.
It is. And I'll say this, I firmly believe that we wouldn't have been as successful as we have been without Dan Monk's effort. He's been
a lot of hard work.
Just amazing.
Okay.
The second item that I should mention here is that, as you all know, Environmental Protection Agency has notified the town that hazardous substances may be present in the slope of the former landfill that is now the Lower Willow Park ball fields. They have done extensive testing. A notice letter you have received a copy of. We have retained counsel, Peter Van Oot, who worked with us on the Superfund site that the town owned at the town landfill. We've engaged an attorney who worked with us back then, who got an office and a great deal of experience with the Environmental Protection Agency and these kinds of issues. And we're right now currently working with EPA and the state and our counsel and engineer to come up with what we believe is a mutually satisfactory work plan to address the findings. These things are always difficult because if you take the most severe approach, it can run into hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you take a more reasonable approach, you might be talking in the range of several thousands of dollars. So somewhere in between is going to be the work plan. We will be working also at the same time to identify potentially responsible parties. We are currently the only party named because we own the site. But there are others that have been identified in past work, and we'll be keeping you posted on where this goes and how it's sugaring out.
Okay. Anything else, Stuart?
I think that's all I need to report tonight.
John, any other business?
No.
Justin?
Just a quick follow-up. Probably a month or so ago, I know we brought up the possibility of checking into taking these packets digital. Has anybody looked into that, and if we've got any progress on it?
In fact, I think in the last packet that I prepared, there was some information that we gained from talking with the CDC folks about what it costs them to go digital, what some of the pros and cons are. I included that in your packet for discussion purposes. Obviously, we're not prepared at this time to make a recommendation one way or the other. I let you folks digest that material, and you tell us where you'd like to go and what direction you'd like us to move in.
Okay. Can we talk about it during the budget?
Well, we can talk. I mean, if we wait for the general fund budget discussions, we're going to be talking next November. And
let's talk about it sooner. The water and sewer budget.
Well, we can work it into that discussion, I'm sure, if you wish to. Okay. We'll let the water and sewer funds pay for it. Yeah. No, that's not. I'm just kidding. But nonetheless, yes, it's an item for discussion.
We'll bring it up on our next few meetings, not this next meeting, meeting after. Okay. All right. Anything else?
No.
Jim?
I've had several residents of Dermody Road come and express their unhappiness with respect to the overall condition of the road, and I told them that I would address it in our meeting and ask if there are any immediate plans to repair it.
I can't tell you right off the top of my head whether it's one of the ones on the list or not, but I'll certainly take a look.
Yeah. Anything else? Tom?
Just a couple of things. One, I want to thank Jim for his letter to the editor, because it really speaks to what I think our board feels about the community getting involved, and if you see something, report it. That was really well placed, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
The other thing is that I would like to see the board take a position relative to legislation to regulate massage therapy in the state. We're apparently the only one of two in the country that does not have any regulation dealing with that issue. And I think it's somewhat important that our legislators know that we're interested.
Got it.
Done?
Make sure.
It's done.
I know him intimately. Sure.
I have nothing tonight.
Stuart, Stark Street ball field hasn't been mowed in 2 weeks. Grass is up knee-high.
That's correct. In fact, Stark Street is not supposed to be a ball field.
Well,
I understand. I understand that people are using it. There are a number of holes in the field that have arisen because of use by neighbors and their dogs. We've had topsoil delivered to the site. We need to move into the site and level it and everything else. So we're asking people, and I think the Recreation Director, Tracy Knights, is attempting to address the folks who are using it to encourage them to not use it until we have a chance to get to it.
Well, the good news is that we've got so many teams that we need more ball fields, and we think this one's fine. But we're on top of it. Okay, good. Now that we've moved our next meeting up to next Monday, is there a need? I will be out of the area tomorrow. I can't meet to come up with the agenda. Is there something you two have to meet to come up with? Is there something
I think
serious?
the agenda is basically warrants, other business, and water and sewer fund preliminary discussion.
Yeah,
Are we
that's
okay
fine.
with that for next week? Okay. And that's all I've got.
Dan's got something.
Move into executive.
Danny?
Just what about the ordinances?
Oh, yeah.
That was going to be on the agenda for the 20th, you know, these folks.
That's a very good point, and I think we can do that. We'll put those ordinances for your consideration on the agenda. If we should have an opportunity, if I can get Dan into work for a few hours each day in his current condition to look over those questions that you folks raised. And I want to say I appreciate your being kind to me tonight, because I'm filling in for Dan.
Okay.
It's only going to happen once, though, Stu. That's it.
We have need to go into executive session for contract.
I'd move.
Can I ask one question?
Yep.
I see we have this memo here that talks about the implementation of the Bennington Strategic Economic Plan. Is that, are we going to discuss that in the?
Yes.
Okay.
With
that's
that
part
packet.
of, okay.
With the booklet. That,
Yeah. Okay, do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, go into executive session of contracts. And that is 6-4.
Okay.
And I got to pass, don't run off till you sign the warrants. We didn't get them out this